Let me begin. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Oded Orgil, and I'm president of the Canada-Israel Chamber of Commerce. We are a non-for-profit organization whose focus is to promote bilateral trade between Canada and Israel and promote Israeli companies and Canadian companies to both people on both sides of the borders. We hope to bring interesting events such as what we're seeing today to all of our members. And it's a very exciting time. And again, this particular event is very timely given the circumstances we're in. So without further ado, I'd like to present our event today is all about Israeli technologies that are delivering life-changing innovations in water and air purification. But before we go to our featured speakers we had planned, we're very lucky to have a guest speaker who's joined us. Dr. Morris is here, and Dr. Morris, we're going to allow him to chat where he sees the world going. But I want to give you a brief bio of Dr. Morris. He obtained his Bachelor of Science in MD from the University of Toronto. He trained in internal medicine at the University of Toronto as well, and there he subsequently completed his subspecialty in infectious diseases in 1999. He went on to complete a Master of Sciences degree in epidemiology from Harvard School of Public Health. He is also chair of the Specialty Committee of Infectious Diseases with the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada and chair of the Antimicrobial Stewardship and Resistance Committee of the Association of Medical Microbiology and Infectious Diseases in Canada. He is also a member of the Parallel Committee of the Society for Healthcare and Epidemiology of America. Dr. Morris, thank you very much for joining us today. And we look forward to a conversation with you and some thoughts from you from a high level on what is going on today and the opportunities for not only Israeli, but Israeli technologies as we move forward to create a clean air environment. Sure.
So thanks for having me. I guess the one thing I would say is I've spent the last 2 years as the co-chair of the Drugs and Biologics Working Group for the province of Ontario. I'm a member of Ontario's Science Table that advises government and policymakers on COVID-19. We're obviously at a really interesting time with COVID right now. I guess we've been in an interesting time with COVID for the last 2 years. And it's been a long 2 years, certainly for some more than others. And but we are at I'll say, a very pivotal time with our global COVID-19 response. I'd say there's a few emerging themes that are really important. One is that we're seeing, and certainly we're experiencing this in Canada, the beginnings of some social unrest in response to public health measures that was seen in other jurisdictions around the world earlier. I guess in Canada, this has been relatively late to arrive, probably because of just our culture and historical relationship in terms of adherence to government guidance. But we are starting to see some pushback, and we're seeing a fair amount of fatigue that's being expressed not only by the public, but actually by politicians as well. So you're hearing more and more politicians saying that they're essentially done with COVID. I think anyone who's quite serious about COVID recognizes that we're not really done with COVID right now. We're not done with COVID probably for a few reasons. The major reason internationally is that there's still a large part of the world, a large population that hasn't been vaccinated. And what that means is that there's a lot of opportunity for a fair amount of mutations to occur when we have large amount of cases. We've obviously had an unprecedented number of cases over the past 6 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks, because of the Omicron wave. And what that likely has meant is emergence of new variants that we may or may not realize, and it may or may not cause problems for us over the next few months. And it's really uncertain how that will occur. But we'll probably see, a parallel wave or a newer wave emerge in African countries and or some Asian countries that we're seeing right now. Obviously, Israel is just experiencing, it looks like they're probably past the peak of its wave, of its Omicron wave, just like we've passed our peak in most of Canada. But there are other jurisdictions, especially Asian countries, that are really in the throes of their Omicron wave. The other aspect of this, of course, is that we still have, even after this Omicron wave, we are going to have a large amount of the population who will remain susceptible. It'll be greater in the US than in Canada and in Israel, and that's because of just the lower rates of immunization. But as I think many people recognized, even though Israel came out with gangbusters in terms of its early vaccination success, there's still a sizable portion of the population that remains vulnerable to acquiring COVID. And I think internationally, what we're also seeing is probably the end results of overall poor messaging around booster doses. And that has left many people around the world vulnerable, especially more older adults being vulnerable because of effects of waning immunity. So what we will see over the next probably 6 months or so will be the emergence of new vaccine technologies. There will be updated mRNA vaccines. And then on top of that, there will also be newer vaccine strategies, ones that look at different aspects of the virus and also different delivery systems that will involve, the nasal mucosa and the throat. So we'll probably have nasal delivery, and that will probably improve the efficacy of the vaccines. Hopefully, when we have vaccines that won't only target the spike protein, we may also have more durable response. The other thing that, and probably the other major transition period that we have, is that because governments and the public are increasingly reluctant to rely on government mandated public health measures, it is increasing the responsibilities on the public and on businesses to ensure that people are kept safe and feel safe and secure wherever they will interact. And that will include obviously businesses, homes, schools, other places of work and congregation. That could include, houses of worship, sporting facilities, gyms, etc. And what that will mean is that there will be, there's a huge need, and there hopefully will be increased impetus on two major aspects around this. One aspect is going to be emphasizing the personal importance of vaccinations, so that the typical person will take their own responsibility to ensure that they're kept safe by being protected through vaccines. But I think what we've also recognized, because of the remarkably dynamic nature of the virus, which is, I think, has surprised many people, to be honest with you, along with the reduction in terms of the durability of not only the vaccine formulations, but also the therapeutics. So for example, we've run through several different monoclonal antibodies that have become obsolete sequentially over time because of the new variants. But what it will mean is that there'll be hopefully a renewed emphasis on the major ways that people will protect themselves from becoming infected, which is, I think most of us are probably just saying breathing clean air. And there's going to be a variety of ways that people will breathe clean air. I'm one of these people who have felt that engineering controls are probably going to be the most durable way to ensure that people breathe clean air. And what I mean by that is people being outdoors where possible, so that they're not congregating indoors, so that they are breathing fresh air. But when they are indoors, buildings having an emphasis on all the different ways to ensure that the air is clean. So ventilation, filtration, purification, all those things. And then when that's not possible, obviously masking. And, it's hard to know what will happen over time. I think what we'll see is what was seen in Asia around masking. And that is, when people get sick in Asia, and they've been doing this for years now, people would automatically mask themselves. Like in Japan, that's what was done, and in many places in China, that was done as a way of protecting others by, controlling what you're breathing out. And so whether that will be a change in how we have in workplaces and schools, et cetera, and have high degrees of masking. But I think the overall long-term population-based durability of the masking strategy will likely wane over time. And I think it's probably going to put just such a greater emphasis on those other engineering controls that I've pointed out of breathing clean air, either indoors and ensuring that the air indoors is clean, or by getting people outdoors. And in Canada, obviously, and I guess especially in the south of Israel, being outdoors isn't always such a great option. And that's why we'll have to focus on making the buildings with as clean air as possible. I think I'll stop there. I could obviously talk for hours, but I'll stop.
No, Doctor, thank you. That was an excellent summary of where we're at at this stage in the pandemic, and hopefully moving more towards an endemic situation. And again, and actually a phenomenal segue for me to pass it over to our guest speaker. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for being here today. I do want to turn it over to our first guest speaker, who I've had the good fortune to know for a number of years. Gil Belutreich is an accomplished Israeli-Canadian investor and real estate entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience in both North America and in Israel. He is currently building 1,700 healthy residential units in Israel. And Gil is also the founder of Clearing. So Gil, I'd like to turn it over to you, please. I know this is your passion now and something that you're focused on. Yeah, get yourself off mute, and I turn it over to you, Gil.
Thank you, Oded, and thank you, Dr. Morris, for the eye-opening address. I think that the major, if you're starting to look about kind of positive that can come outcome from this current pandemic, I think is the attention that going back to where we live, to our structure. And as Dr. Morris talked about the air, and now we started to think about how to make our structure healthier or breathe better air. It's not just in the air. We have some major issues with our water too. And following some illness at my family a few years ago, my daughter got a chronic disease that we learned from the doctors that it was in a high probability from water biological contamination. I started to investigate deeper as a developer what's going on. And I want to share with you what we found. So I will try to share the screen. Let's see if I can do it. Screen, and then start broadcast. So what we found that the World Health Organization declared years ago that 40% of our buildings in North America are sick. And it's combination of different syndromes that and different situations that we are facing in our structure. And if we go right to the point, so you can see how our water system in Miami, in New York, in LA, in Toronto, Montreal looks like. We are getting very fresh and clean water that's treated in our plant. And when we deliver it to our buildings, it's going through miles of pipes that they are in the ground for sometimes over 100 years. And this is how it looks like after 30 years. We have a biofilm that providing the clean water that's coming from the city plant, basically going through our infrastructure directly to our kitchen, to our tubs, showers. And this is represent a major health risk. And we saw many research that connecting illnesses that we are getting because of the water that we are ingesting in our home. Same issue we see in our air circulation and ventilations in buildings. There are some vents and areas that we cannot actually reach even to clean. So beside the pandemic and the transfer of the COVID-19, we are suffering and for many, many years in our building from lack of ventilation and lack of clean water. And this is called major illnesses that, according to the APA, the US authorities dealing with environmental, the estimate damage to the US economy, it's over $76 billion a year because of our sick building. I went into a journey to look for where are the best technologies in the world, because I wanted to bring them to my buildings, because I think and I believe that now it's very important not just to save energy, it's in our buildings and to design them to make and create great lifestyle. I think then the next wave in real estate is to ensure that our tenants, our buyers, going to be healthier. And in order to do that, we conduct for years a major research, and we found that actually in Israel there is the best knowledge and the best technology exists. And we have with us in this webinar, we have a representative from Ora Air from Israel that dealing with air purification. And we have with us Atlantium, Amichai, our Atlantium main engineer and developer for the disinfection machine for the water. What we are using, I decided as developer not to take a risk and use some kind of innovative technology. I wanted to repurpose existing technology that works and that have been developed, and I was not looking for new innovation. So, for example, Atlantium system basically installed for over 20 years in many pharmaceutical companies worldwide, like Kimberly-Clark, like Pfizer, turning the city water that coming from the pipe that I just showed you into microbiological water, which means super clean water, super purified water with almost zero of pathogen, bacteria, and viruses. This machine, what we are doing now together with Atlantium, we're repurposing from pharmaceutical and food and beverage industries into the real estate. And this machine's providing, as of now in North America, in the first buildings, microbiological water in all the tubs, because it's not enough to use a bottle of water. In my case, I'm using glass because I don't want to harm the environment, but this is not helping us, because then we're going and we're taking a shower and we're just ingesting the same contamination that we're trying to avoid by buying and carrying home and causing damage to the economy, to the environment, but by using a plastic bottle or super purified water. So for us, it's a central solution, and it's a solution that considered basically the best in the world. It's protected by 60 patents, and Amir, I can talk about it later on. Basically the roots of Ora, it's in a factories in Israel called Bet El. It's a bunch, basically a factory that have been established in 1974 in order to provide anti-biological and chemical war defense system for the Israeli state. And since then, Bet El developing military-grade defense system to purify air in headquarters and many other sensitive areas in Israel, NATO, and now for the US Army. Ora Air took their technology, adapted technology, and basically bring it to civil use. And Roy Feldberg, the CEO of Ora US, will talk about it shortly. Another thing that we did by implementing the two systems into a building, we provide the interface that actually, if you look bigger, actually combine our machines sensoring the water quality, sensoring the quality of the disinfection, and we can actually show it on the screen in the lobby or on our cell phone. All of that 24/7, so we can see all time that our water in our air in our sensitive buildings, sensitive areas in buildings is safe. This is a photo. of how our system, the water system, the water disinfection systems looks like. The first installation we did in the Vogue Hotel in Montreal. And on the left side, you see the big black pipe. This is the city water. And after this water going through our system, on the right side, the vertical pipe delivering to the entire hotel microbiological water. In that one, I actually finished the presentation. And I'm very glad and thankful for Oded and the Chamber of Commerce that gave us the stage to explain. I truly believe that the clean water and clean air inside our buildings, when we are spending 90% of our life expectancy inside structure, when we are living, working, playing, this is where is one of the massive challenges for the human race for the 21st century. There is still lots of research need to be done, but I think that CLEAR, together with our partners in Israel, will be able to move the technology forward and make our public healthier. I'm a big believer in prevention, then in medication and using doctors to cure us. And I'm glad that the best technology, it's in Israel. Thank you, and back to you, Oded.
Gil, thank you very much. That was a phenomenal summary of what CLEAR does. And again, I'm sure there'll be some questions. I already want to ask you a few when we get the panel together. But without further ado, let me turn it over now to someone you mentioned, Rory Friedberg, who is the CEO of Aura Air Americas. He's an experienced individual in planning and executing strategic global collaborations with a variety of industries, such as medical, hospitality, commercial real estate, and local authorities. Prior to his role right now, Rory also worked in the Prime Minister's office for 2 years. He holds a BA in Government and International Relations. And I'm going to turn it over to you now, Rory, to talk a little bit about Aura's involvement through this process. And yeah, please, over to you, Rory.
Thank you so much, Oded, and thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor. I will share my screen. And my purpose here is to speak a bit about the issue of indoor air quality, to show the audience what Aura Air is doing nowadays in different verticals, and to show examples from actually the last couple of days from different industries. But I will start with introducing myself and the company. So I'm the CEO of the American company, and Aura was founded 4 years ago, before COVID, with the vision of providing a safe and healthy indoor environment, and also helping people see the unseen, which is the air we're breathing. We understood that it's a big issue way before COVID, because we were spending more than 90% of our time indoors. As you can see nowadays, we're operating in over 50 countries, actually in 87 countries, in healthcare, commercial, residential, hospitality, and also transportation. Our technology is award-winning technology. We won sustainability awards, we won design awards, and our vision is really to help people be in a safe environment. I really like this quote from Harvard because I think it's an amazing example of the impact of indoor air quality on our day-to-day. You can see that indoor air quality has a significant impact on everything we're doing. It's related to our health, but not only that, also on our productiveness, also on our happiness, decision-making processes, and also grades in school. And therefore, we need to improve it, not only because of COVID, because that's the places that we're spending most of our time. In terms of our technology, over here you can see our flagship product, which is a one-stop shop to purify, disinfect, monitor, and report your indoor air quality. We're combining unique filtration and disinfection, patented, combining real-time analytics and monitoring, and also algorithms and reporting. You can see that we're using filtration and also disinfection methods. And not only that, we're also using real-time monitoring of indoor and outdoor air quality. What's also important to understand in our technology is that it's part of two ecosystems. One, it's smart building automation. So our technology could trigger different platforms in the building using our open API. We can trigger, for example, the fresh air system to increase ventilation. We can trigger the smart thermostat or other platforms within the building. And also smart home automations, if it's the Google Home, Alexa, to open windows and to trigger other platforms based on what's happening inside of the environment. Although, like I mentioned, we're not a COVID-19 company, we do understand that COVID, it's a global issue, that we need to be in the front line and help the world to tackle this virus. So Aura tested our technology in California and also in Sheba Medical Center Hospital. And we tested it in a live environment to see the capabilities of the technology to reduce the virus load from the air. So you can see the environment where the device was tested. And as you can see from the results, we managed to decrease the virus load by 99.998% after 60 minutes. The Israeli Ministry of Health took the research, and they've done also a committee to test and to see that the results are valid, and we got the approval that it does disinfect COVID from the air. Moreover, on the technology, it's also the smart analytics and the ability to help enterprise customers, government authorities, and the end user to see in real time the unseen, to understand and to have peace of mind when they're entering the room. People want to see what's happening. People want us to have visibility to what we're breathing. We're providing real-time information using 3 platforms. One, the enterprise dashboard to track, oversee, and control thousands of devices in real time, to be able to get actionable insights. But not only that, we're also helping the end user, this guy or lady entering the elevator, entering the office, going to the doctor, to see using a QR code to scan and get real-time recommendations and real-time data so they can understand what's happening inside of the environment. Aura is applicable for every indoor environment, from OR in hospitals to schools and even buses. And I will show you a couple of examples from different countries of what we're doing now. First of all, hospitals. So as you can see from the article from the Jerusalem Post, Aura is capable to eliminate COVID-19 particles, SARS-CoV-2. Nowadays, we have mass deployment inside of hospitals. 2 of them are Sheba Medical Center Hospital in Israel and also Ichilov in Israel. We're now mass deployed in the hospital to help prevent acquired infections from the air. And we're also doing a very important research with the infection department at Sheba. And soon we're going to publish the research. You can see that the devices could fit a room, a patient room or our room, but also doctor offices and let's say areas that are less medical, but also we've seen infections in those places during COVID. The next case study, which we're seeing nowadays as really crucial, is back to school. We're seeing it globally. There are a lot of countries that are now mandating air purification inside of classrooms. One of them is New York. The DOE of New York is mandating 2 air purifiers for each classroom in New York City. But not only that, also the Israeli Ministry of Education. As you can see from the couple of examples that I brought, so Aura is nowadays working and was selected by the Israeli Health and Education Ministries to counter the spread of COVID-19 inside of the Israeli schools. We're also doing the same thing in the UK and also in the city of Cambridge. So we're installed inside of schools. And the goal is really to help the parents to send their children to school and feel safe. So they can know that the state-of-the-art technology inside of the classrooms, but they can also have visibility and see what their children are breathing and not only related to COVID. So that's a trend that we're seeing the world going towards more and more air purifications inside of classrooms. Transportation, in my view, that's the future. And we're starting to see it also a significant trend in Israel, in the UK, and also in the US of installing air purification technologies inside of buses. Aura is one of the leading technologies nowadays in this vertical. And as you can see from the example from the New York Post and from the Jerusalem Post, we are now helping buses and transportation companies in Australia, in Chile, in the UK, in the US, and also in Israel, to help them manage the fleet of buses and to also prevent infections inside of those environments. Because what's happening inside of a yellow bus, we're all the time doing quarantine and preventing from children to be inside of classrooms and to get infected, but then they're leaving the classroom and going on the yellow bus without masks, and we're doing a big mess to ourselves. And therefore, Aura decided to tackle this vertical and also help people drive safely, but not only buses, also ambulances, which is another vertical that we're helping to use and reopen all this. Two last case studies. One is hotels. For us, it's really important to help economies and to help people to go to vacations and to help the actually people to go back to normal and to be able to travel and to fly and to go to the hotel room and feel safe, or to fly and feel safe. So over here you can see examples from hotels in the US. We've done case studies and we proved that one, people care about air quality and wellness. People want to understand that the hotels they're going are clean, safe, and that they can be there. It's not only related to air, like Gil mentioned, it's also water and food, but the wellness trend is here to stay and it's only growing. And that's an example from the hotels. And lastly, ESG. So that's the future of the big corporates and government. People and organizations want to make sure that we're treating environmental, social, and governance and making sure that everything is data-driven. So I brought two examples actually from Africa. We had a very interesting event in Israel where we hosted 10 African ambassadors to build a data center and to build a tool for governments to see in real time indoor air quality, to be able to have tools to prevent future infections and future diseases, and to make sure that people are in safe and healthy indoor environments. Thank you so much for the time and for the invitation. It's a great honor to be here with you, and I would be happy to answer any question later on.
Boy, thank you very much. That was a great summary of Aura, what they're doing. I think what we're going to do now, I'd like to introduce two other individuals who are here, who will join our panel right now, and we'll open this up for some dialogue, a bit of a fireside chat. So prior to introducing them, I apologize. I'm going to say that everybody, if you've got questions, please forward them in. I see we've got a few already, but the two other gentlemen who are joining us right now is number one is Oded Orgil. He is the managing partner at Aura Canada. He's a lawyer by background with over 23 years experience in the enterprise strategic selling, business development, consulting, and sales. And Oded he's living here in Toronto. In addition, Amichai Felder, who is the head, Gil mentioned him a little bit earlier, the head of process at Atlantium Technologies. He leads their multidisciplinary team in the development of green solutions for municipal, industrial, application based on Atlantium's proprietary UV systems. So thank you also both for joining us right now. As I said, the questions are open out there. If I may, I'd like to start with one, and it's directed at Dr. Morris. And again, you kind of answered it, but my question is just obviously masking has been the predominant thing that everybody talks about. Now we're talking here today about really getting to the root of the problem, which is ventilation and breathing clean air, which is so important, which all our speakers talked about. And I'm just wondering if you see my question is twofold. Number one, do you see a recognition by government to move forward as this? Is there an impetus to allow these companies to develop their technologies working with you? And I also have a quick question. You mentioned the cultural change. Do you see North Americans ever adopting a little bit of that? You said it'll dissipate, but that Japanese culture perhaps of wearing masks in public places. So I'm sorry, I'm asking you two questions, and then I'd love the other panelists to also jump in at some point.
Yeah, so I think the issue around governments and caring about the clean air, we have seen both local governments and provincial investing a fair amount, for example, in schools with HEPA filtration and improving ventilation standards throughout. And we've seen businesses do the same thing. I was playing basketball in the gym on Sunday evening, which is run by the city of Toronto, and there were two massive HEPA filters that were brand new placed in there. So I think there is a recognition. Every so often, though, it gets kiboshed by poor communication, usually by government leaders, but it could be by others who are emphasizing, what I will say is dated information around, for example, hand hygiene, which is still very important, but it's not a method of controlling COVID. It's not an important method of controlling COVID, whereas the clean air is. So I think there absolutely is a recognition, and certainly from the science table, when we to the Toronto Board of Trade and gave a presentation to them, we emphasized all these aspects, and especially the having clean air. In terms of the cultural shift, I think that's left to be decided. Almost certainly, the concept of masking has been destigmatized, and so I think whereas almost nobody was walking around, other than some people with Asian backgrounds you saw over the last number of years during respiratory virus season wearing masks. I do think that that's going to change substantially. Nobody is dramatically fearful of wearing masks anymore. They don't feel that they're going to necessarily be stigmatized. And even in the US, where there's a much greater movement away from masking, still there are many people who have and will continue to mask. It will vary, obviously, with perceived risk, and I think that's going to be the issue, is going to be around perceived risk. I think most people, if given the choice, would rather not mask than mask, but if they feel that it's going to provide them with additional necessary protection, then they will probably do that as well.
Thank you. I'd like to throw open my first question to all the panelists. I mean, in no particular order, just about, again, obviously all of you have taken on this initiative because it's the right thing to do, and we're all capitalists, and that's a healthy thing, but it's to do good and to do well. But are you seeing positive aspects from governments to encourage you to take this on? I'll start, if I may, with Gil, but please, let's go around the table.
I personally try not to deal with government, because it will push me back.
Okay.
When you start to deal, we are going right to the sense of developers, real estate owners. This is a small, tiny investment, because basically what we're doing, we put this package together based on subscription based. So there is no equity expense from the developer. There is no real investment. There is a commitment of a small payment every month for delivering clear air and clear water. And we believe that this is the way to go. They understand that they need to provide healthier buildings. If you have a hotel and you need to bring back the consumer confidence, it's basically no-brainer to make your hotel healthier and bring the health level of your in favor of your guests. So right now, but I honestly believe that in the next 5 years, we'll start to see governmental legislations about exactly, we have a carbon monoxide detector or a smoke detector. We will start to see a technology that the government will have to put some kind of a disinfection purification systems in our water source when they're coming to our buildings. And I believe the same for the air. This is a natural evolution.
Thank you, Gil. I'd like to throw it out. I mean, again, Yehuda, I know I haven't asked you, but please, maybe if you could comment on what you see here in Canada.
No, I mean, absolutely from the government perspective, in terms of them having a very, clear approach now that they want to be taking, as Dr. Morris suggests, putting these HEPA filters in public areas, creating that safety, allowing people to come back and feel comfortable and safe is being key. And there's sort of, it continues to develop more momentum and more scrutiny over that, specifically that the importance, which is what we're asking for. We, as people that are going into these public areas, are asking, the constituents are asking for that, for our government to provide that safety, and they're certainly beginning to do that and take responsibility. It's a little bit of sort of a, the approach. What we're seeing right now is not a concerted understanding of exactly how to go about it, but that's part of what we're doing here. Is as it relates to our role, is helping educate the government, get in front of the government, speak to them, create some sort of a proposition around building the same way you would go into the restaurant and you have the assurances that the restaurant was being appropriately certified for cleanliness based on the serving and being able to eat safely there. Well, we would hope that, and this is an initiative that we're working on, is that we can create a certification process that when we go into restaurants, we go into public areas, we know before stepping in through the air transparency that we're able to provide, that you are walking into a safe place that has air or water certifications that are able to confirm and give you that comfort.
Thank you. Roy, I noticed on your presentation, if I may ask you, I mean, you talked, there's opportunities in Africa. Perhaps, where do you see, I mean, obviously the opportunities are all over the world, but where do you see perhaps the greatest receptivity, to this process of, again, countries, or businesses? Is it easier to start in a place like Africa where there perhaps, there isn't as much history like we're seeing in North America? Gil alluded to pipes that have been around for 100 years. Maybe you could talk a little bit the opportunities.
Sure. So thank you for the question. For us, the main focus and let's say target is North America, Japan, Germany, and Taiwan. Africa was an example for more social impact project that for us was a goal as a company also to do good and to make sure that we're educating and helping people breathe safely. But we have to say that the awareness is mainly here in North America and in Europe, and also, like I said, Japan and Taiwan. Over here, for example, in the US, we have the WELL standard, and we have LEED and everything which is related to safety and well-being, and that's a trend we're seeing buildings getting certified on almost daily basis because there is the awareness for this topic. But it's a domino effect. We're starting to see, when we met the ambassadors in Tel Aviv, we heard that, for example, hospitals and schools and government offices also became places that they want to have better solutions to improve the air quality there. So I believe it will take a couple of years until we'll see it globally. But meanwhile, in North America and Europe and in some places in Asia, it's a must-have. It's no longer nice to have.
Great, thank you very much.
In the end of the day, it's all come from the consumer changing awareness. So we conduct a major market research by Saventa. It's a very large market research company. And they found that the public in North America, as of now, during the pandemic and after it's in the end of the pandemic, is very concerned about the air quality, indoor air quality, and water quality. So when you will go to New York to a hotel and you have two hotels, the same level, two sides of the street, when one of them can provide you health certification and you know that you are taking shower and you're getting a healthy water and you're breathing healthier air, I think that it's no brainer where we as consumers will go. So this is basically the market will push, and we'll see and we already see the first leaders in real estate starting to lead this movement. And I'm very happy to see that it's starting to grow because this is the future.
Right. Thank you. Amichai, please, were you going to say something? I'm not sure if you were going to add something or I was going to ask you a question.
I just want to add, we are seeing also, as a water disinfection company, we are seeing proactive actions from companies, from food and beverage companies, from bottlers, from municipalities, and these are proactive. These are not required by the regulation. If a few years ago the regulation in most North America discussed about UV to remove cryptosporidium and giardia, it remains the same up to this day. But because of the public awareness, companies and municipalities now require 4-log virus and much higher degree of disinfection.
Thank you. We've got a number of questions. We have a limited amount of time, but I do want to ask a couple more, if I may, for all of your indulgence. Number one is we've talked about this more from an industrial or sort of commercial level currently. I mean, obviously Gil is doing this and we're doing this in developments. Do you guys see the opportunity over time for individual homeowners to purchase this technology, to go to Home Depot and allow them, or is this going to be strictly going to be at the installation phase? Anybody, feel free, please jump in. Go ahead, Yehuda.
Yeah, for sure. So from the consumer side, the product is absolutely available to the homeowners, and the solution is available. Roe shared with us sort of the enterprise look and feel of it, but at the end of the day, the technology is the same, whether it's in the enterprise or in the home, and there's a home consumer version of it. And for anybody that's interested in, we'll share. We have information, and we can share that in through our suppliers. We don't have today retail channels specifically. We have partnerships, and we can share the partnership information for selling, for buying our units, for sure.
For the water purification systems, we don't have for single homes. This is industrial major systems for buildings from 50 units up to 1,000 units per building. Big buildings, central, very strong. It will not be economical to put it in a home, the level that we are bringing the disinfection. Not yet. It will come.
Yeah, so people have to learn to buy a condo with your development, Gil. I mean, in order to get the benefit. Sorry, on that note, and I'm just throwing this out, and then I do want to ask Dr. Morris one more question as a follow-up to this. Do you see over time insurance companies recognizing the need for this, much like we've seen where they implement chips in cars, and if you're a safe driver, your rates will come down. If you have a home security, that your ownership comes down. I think I'm answering my own question, but I'd love to hear again if you're hearing feedback from insurance owners for the like on this, whether it's home insurance, life insurance, disability. Anybody?
I personally can tell you that we definitely see that as a very big market, because if you will have in your buildings systems that elevate health, you will prevent illness and push your life longevity and overall health. So there's no reason why the insurance company will not participate in this effort. We are not yet there, but this is definitely one of the steps in the future.
I can tell that we're already seeing traction and process with insurance companies, and our data scientist team is already doing a POC with a couple of insurance companies because they understand that the ability to see the data, the real-time data, and also historical data, for them it's a game changer. And Oded, like you mentioned, it could be health insurance, but also environmental insurance related to mold, for example, or for different type of causes for the sick building syndrome. And I believe that will be the future of the market. When the insurance companies will adopt it, it will be on a much bigger scale.
Right. Thank you. Please.
Sorry. So I think we are seeing it in a micro level when nowadays hospitals and hotels are choosing to place our system. They are considering the risk management, their internal risk management, in placing it in preventing of Legionella, for example.
Oh, that's great, thank you. Dr. Morris, there's a couple questions for you, and if I may, but again, everybody can join in, but you commented again of the importance of engineered ventilation and filtration in the HVAC solutions that are being seen for the response to COVID-19, and we've seen it across Canada. How do you see this solution being more widely adopted in other parts of the Canadian building sector?
I'm probably not, qualified to comment on that, to be honest with you.
Go ahead. It's all right. We're just friends here. It's all right.
No, I think that we have tolerated respiratory illnesses for decades, probably centuries, but certainly decades, in a manner that we probably shouldn't have, right? We've tolerated influenza, other respiratory viruses, and certainly obviously COVID-19. And COVID-19 is the tipping point, but many of these things, and especially influenza, were unnecessarily under the radar, right? Every year we've had massive surges in hospitalizations and around respiratory virus seasons, and those were almost certainly related to respiratory illnesses, viruses in particular. And you know, governments and other people would be wise, and this has an impact on absenteeism in schools, absenteeisms in businesses, the strains on the healthcare system, downstream costs, and it's massively underappreciated. And, you know, when people wondered why, when there were lockdowns, our emergency, why illness dropped substantially. And yes, there were people with, you know, strokes and heart attacks, et cetera, and appendicitis, but COPD exacerbations, you know, chronic lung exacerbations and other illnesses largely went away. And almost certainly, if we, from a society perspective, make those investments, it will make sense for business bottom lines because they will have less absenteeism. You know, a long time ago, I had pointed out to some professional sports leagues that they needed to pay attention to this because, you know, we always had athletes missing big games because of influenza and other illnesses because they just didn't pay attention to all of this. Hopefully most of that will change, but we really need a societal approach to respiratory illnesses that's going to, you know, be comparable to what we're thinking about with COVID-19.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to ask Yehuda to comment just a little bit, but it's an underlying theme, if I may paraphrase what Gil has said, and I'm a believer that business is going to lead, government is not going to lead. I mean, Yehuda, your thoughts on that, just again, as someone who's now living, I know Gil, I think I agree with Gil. I'm just interested if you see that's what's going to happen through this process.
Yeah, I 100% echo sort of what Gil had said as it relates to what we're seeing and how the process is going to be. We were in, you know, discussions with commercial property owners today that are taking this initiative very seriously, both from the water and certainly from the air, and they're doing what's necessary to ensure that they can bring their employees back safely into the environments that they're providing for their tenants. And we're, you know, through that initiative, through those means we'll continue to see the businesses taking the front line in terms of ensuring that air quality and as Gil mentioned, water quality is front and center.
That's great. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We're almost at an hour. We often limit these to 10 minutes. I mean, there are some more questions, but the most interesting comment that I want to share with our audience and with yourselves, obviously, is there's so much that needs to be explored here that the request has been made to have more events like this. So my hope is to have all of you back, either as a group or individually. And I want to thank you all very much. I mean, this is not, I mean, obviously COVID is timely, but air purification is something, and water purification is something that, as all of you alluded to, I mean, let's deal with the root of the problem. Let's move forward. And again, do good and do well. I want to thank all of you. I'm happy to go around. Does anyone want to have any closing comments? From my perspective, it's been very enjoyable. Not only enjoyable, I've learned a lot and I appreciate it. And for everybody, all our audience, thank you all for joining. We are recording this conversation. It'll be posted. We'll look forward to having something different, but thank you all. Unless anyone wants to make a closing comment, I want to wish everybody good evening, good afternoon. And yeah, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.